everyone, this is Sasha bringing you a video tutorial today from BP for You. So we've imported our pictures, we have developed them, and we've made lots of awesome changes, and we got our pictures looking pretty awesome. And so now what? So we've got them in Lightroom, and if you go up here to File, you'll notice that there's no Save or Save As button. This really confused me the first time that I used Lightroom because I was like, oh no, now what do? I can't get my pictures out. Well, we don't save our pictures, we export them. And so let's go ahead and select a few pictures to export. As of right now, if I were to go up here to File and Export, I would be exporting just this photo, because if you come down here to my little photo bin, this is the only one I have selected. So if I want to export more than one photo, then I click on all of the pictures that I want to export and all of the ones that I feel ready to have exported. So great, so I held down my Control key, Command on a Mac, and I have clicked on all of the photos that I wanted to have highlighted. I can do a few things here. I can go up to File, I can go up to Export, I can click Control-Shift-E or Command-Shift-E on a Mac. I can left click or right click here on my mouse, and I can go up here to export. And when I export it using this method, I will get to use one of my export presets, and we will talk about that in just a couple minutes. But for now, let's just go up here to File and Export, and this menu is going to come up. Okay, so we have this menu here, and there are a few options that we can choose here when we are exporting our pictures. The first thing up here is we have this Export To. Most of the time you're probably going to go to hard drive, but you can also do them on a CD or an email. I'm going to leave mine on hard drive. Here's our export location. Now we can export them to a specific folder. We can click the Choose Folder Later, which is useful if we want to make an export preset. And I'm going to talk about that at the end here. Or we can export them to the same folder as the original photo. Now if you are somebody who uploads your pictures onto your computer before editing them, then that might be good for you if you keep everything nice and organized. If you're like me, you probably export them right after you have them on your SD card or your CF card or whatever card, or your camera. However you do that, that might not be ideal for you if you keep them stored there temporarily until they're edited, because then you have to still go through all the trouble of getting them back off. So I'm just going to leave this Choose Folder Later. If you wanted to use specific folder, I'll show you how you can do that. You would just go ahead, and you can see right here you have folder and then you have a path, but you can choose to have another path. And so I would come up here and I could click and navigate to where I want to put them, and then click on Select Folder. You can click to add them to a subfolder and give your subfolder a name. You can add them back into your catalog. And with existing files, you can choose what you want to do. And so right now I have mine set on Ask What to Do. This is if you have say 2 files with the same name. It can choose a new name for your exported files. You can overwrite them without warning. You can skip it, or you can choose Ask What to Do. Generally, you probably want to have it on Ask What to Do, and the reason for that is it might be different in different cases. For example, you may want it to overwrite some files because you chose to edit them differently and you just hate the first edit. Or maybe you don't want it to overwrite them and you want it to choose a new name, or it could just vary depending upon the situation. So I like to keep it on Ask What to Do. For my preset that I'm going to make, because I am going to make a preset, I'm going to choose folder later. And again, I still have these options here with the existing files, and I can choose to add these back into the catalog. And for now, I'm going to not check that option. So here I've got file naming, so I can rename these files upon export. And so here I've got this file name. I can come up here to edit. I can, let's see here, I can choose to just go ahead and give that a name. And there it would be a custom setting. I can choose to have lowercase or uppercase extensions, and so that is the .jpg, excuse me. So that is completely up to you how you want that to look. If you don't want to rename it, then you can just uncheck that box, and that option will just kind of go away. Video, we really don't have to worry about. This is kind of a photography video, so we're just going to work on picture stuff. So here you can choose the image format that you want to export it with. And so I always like to export mine as JPEGs. I can use those to share on my favorite social media sites. I can use those for emailing. I can share them with my friends and my family and my clients. I can send them off to the printers like that. That works great for me. But you may have different intentions for your photos after you export them. Maybe you want to export them as a PSD, a Photoshop document, so that you can go ahead and open those in Photoshop then and make some further changes to your pictures. You can choose to send them off as a TIFF, a DNG, or whatever the original file type was. And so those options are available to you as well. Your color space, I usually keep mine in sRGB, and that is what my favorite social media sites and so forth, that is what color space they use. That is what a lot of printers use. You may want to go ahead and check with your printer just to be sure. But the printer that I like to use uses the sRGB color space. If I was going to maybe move it over to Photoshop and I wanted to edit in a different color space, maybe I would want to use Adobe RGB. You know, that again is completely up to you. That is your preference. Here you can choose whether you want to limit your file size. I usually have that box turned off. Usually I like to keep my quality up at 100, and I like to keep my files the original size. But if you were working on some kind of a project where you just needed small photos for something, then you could go ahead and you could lower your file size there. Here we have our image size. And so again, here we can resize our images, and not the file size, but the image size, you can resize it here. And so here we've got our width and our height, and this is in pixels. We can do inches or centimeters. You can choose whether or not you want it to enlarge, and you can choose your resolution here. I'm going to leave this off because, again, I like my images to be the original size, but I might want my resolution to maybe be 300 ppi or dpi. And if you wanted to choose that to pixels per centimeter, then that would be an option as well. Here I have my output sharpening. I can choose whether upon export that I would like Lightroom to go ahead and do a standard sharpening for me, and so I can sharpen for my screen. I can sharpen for matte paper or for glossy paper, and Lightroom is very smart and it will know what that amount should look like. And just to clarify, if you wanted it to go above the standard amount, then you could click high, and if you wanted it to go below the standard amount, then you could click low. Here we have our metadata. Here you can choose whether you want all of your metadata exported, your copyright only, your copyright and contact only, or everything except for your camera and raw information. The more metadata that you have attached to your photograph, the larger that your file size is going to be. And that is just because it's, you know, has all of that information attached, and it's going to be pulling that out with that. I like to keep mine on all, just because then if I go back later and I want to know what my settings or something specific was, then I can go ahead and I can open that back up and say, oh yeah, I shot that at ISO 500 with an aperture of 1.4 and a shutter speed of 2500. And so that is something that you will have to decide as well. You can choose whether or not you want your location information, and you can choose whether or not you want the keywords or not. Here we have our watermark. If you haven't saw the watermark video yet, then you can go ahead and check that out. Again, if you choose one of your preset watermarks, then you could add that to your photo, and it would add on there to the location that you have that set at. And here we have this post-processing. You can decide whether after you export your photos, do they automatically open up into Adobe Photoshop if you have that. I have that program, therefore that is an option for me, and you can see that I have that. Now I can open that into Portraiture if you have that program. Another application, you know, it's going to be kind of up to you. I have do nothing checked because when I export my photos, usually I'm pretty happy with the way that they look. If I wanted to go ahead and open those up into Photoshop though, then I would want to have that checked. And that is sometimes something that I choose to do or something that I want to do. Okay, so I've got all of this great data set up, and I know that I'm going to want to do this every time I export a photo for the most part. There will be exceptions, there's always exceptions, but for the most part this is probably going to be how I'm going to export my photos every time. So I can go ahead and I can save this. So I can come over here and click Add, and it's going to come up with a preset name, and I can say Sasha Standard Export. So I can go ahead and click Create. And then I could go ahead and I could export my photos, but instead of doing that right this second, I'm going to show you, because when we right-clicked earlier and we came up here to export, I told you that we had those presets. And so here I can go ahead and I can click on that. Now remember when we checked the box to ask us upon export where we wanted our photos to go to? This is exactly why we did that, because now look. Now we can click and we can decide what folder that we want that to go to. We can click Select Folder. And here we already have some of these names in here. So again, when we checked that box to ask us what to do with duplicate files, now we can choose to overwrite them, to skip it, or to use unique names. Let's go ahead and overwrite them just because I know they're the exact same file and there's nothing different about them. Up here I can see my pictures are exporting. And yeah, I can see that when this bar gets all the way over to the end, then they will be finished. And it says task completed. And I again have my Lightroom 4 plate there. And so exporting photos is super easy. I can now continue to use my preset when I right click my folders without having to bring up that menu as many times as I need to. And if I change my mind about something and I want to go ahead and I want to export something new, then I can always come back up here and I can edit all of these settings and then hit my export button, or I can add another preset. Something else that we have here is if you wanted to, you could come up here and it has this export with preset. And again, we can come down here and click on that. And Lightroom does have a few already made presets as well that you can choose from. You can export with your previous information. This would be your previous exported information, or you can export your catalog as catalog. And so exporting photos is made super easy in Lightroom. And I love the preset options. And now I have my awesomely edited photos already put into the folder on my computer where I went ahead and had them dropped, and you can see that it was super easy. So thank you for watching this video tutorial. Happy editing!